very excited. Yes, you can see my profile is I am a speaker. I do leadership and sales training. I've had my own story, and that's really what the book is about. My life begins next Monday, ... is I was blessed. How many of you have ever done anything the hard way? Okay, thank you. I feel better, because that's really what my life has been about, is doing things the hard way and having to learn to overcome obstacles. But today I'm here because God has blessed me with a wonderful son. And after I went through all of my life's trials, I believe he prepared me to be able to help Josh when he started going through his trials. I'm going to get choked up. I have to tell you, this is the first time I'm actually doing this for Josh in our story together versus just my story, and it's different. So thank you for bearing with me. It was a Friday morning, 10 a.m. I was on the phone with Josh about 7 or 8 years ago. He was living with who is my ex-husband, and he had quit his 10th job after 3 days again. I was, Josh, you can't keep doing this. It's time to grow up. He was about 17, 18. You gotta keep the job. You're gonna have to help your dad. His dad was in bad health. And he was gonna have to step up. If you're gonna live with him, you're going to have to help him. And he said, why do you even care? You have nothing to do with this anymore anyway. And you have nothing to do with this. You can't tell us what to do. And Dad doesn't have to quit his job. And he had diabetes. We've heard a lot about the comparison. And he was an alcoholic. And he was not able to take care of himself, more or less take care of Josh. However, the court systems, because he was a teenager, Josh got to choose who he lived with. I didn't have a choice. So it was interesting because I've heard all morning already all these things: legal, parenting, shame, divorce, stress. I mean, he had them all. My gosh, it's amazing he's not more crazy than he is. Okay, because I made all the mistakes there is, and we joke about it. We have a sense of humor about it. That's the point. I wouldn't be here if Josh is my hope, because I made a lot of mistakes in my life and decisions I made. And if it wasn't for, I believe, his willingness to own his disease, I don't think I'd be up here today. I'm inspired by him. And that's really what today is. I hope today, when you leave, you realize that I'm preaching to the choir, somebody else said that today. But when you leave here, out there, it's hope and love that a lot of people need. I'm not going to talk about the science of it. You've had many people, doctors on the stage, talking about the science of the brain. What I believe, and the reason why we're here, is a lot more people, and parents and the caregivers need hope and love. And if it wasn't for hope and love, we wouldn't be here today, and Josh wouldn't be doing as well as he's doing. But there's 7 stages I believe we go through when it comes to overcoming the obstacles. And the first one is survival. When we hear that our son, our child, somebody in our family has a mental illness, the first thing we do is we gotta survive the day. How do I get through today? We just gotta survive today. What are we gonna do? I've gotta work. I've gotta do the money. We gotta make the bills. My insurance will pay for this. How am I gonna get him there? He was living 17 states away. I'm just gonna survive this. His father isn't going to acknowledge it. So how am I going to do this? The second stage is denial. And denial is when I believe enabling comes in. Because denial is when we start making excuses for all the things that we've done. And you know what? He doesn't have a mental illness. He's just a drug addict. He started hanging around with the wrong kids. I was a bitter ex-wife. It was my ex-husband's fault. That's why that's why he's there. See, because on that Friday, after we got off the phone, I knew something was wrong. There was something different in his voice. And I looked at my husband now, said, something's wrong. He sounds angry, angrier than normal. I hope he doesn't hurt Wade. 2 hours later, my daughter calls me and says, Josh just tried to kill Dad. So we are in the lower statistics. So when I see the media today, it gets me so riled up because that could be anybody that one of us knows. What are we supposed to do? Lock them up? And if it wasn't for the fact that after I got off the phone with Josh, he actually started to beat my ex-husband, and it dialed, who was my son-in-law, and he didn't pick up the phone. And we got it on recording. And he said things like, you're irradiating my thoughts to the world, and I saw it on David Letterman last night. And it was on Jay Leno. Every time I say anything, you and Mom are telling everybody what I'm thinking. That was all on the recording. What a blessing that ended up being, because it was on a Friday. And on a Friday in the court systems, you have to wait till when? Monday, yes. So he's in a little town jail, and he went into a psychotic episode there. Thank goodness. I look back now. Now remember, I'm in Tennessee, he's in Nebraska, and he was turning 18 at the time. Right, I mean, timing is everything, folks. And my ex-husband would not give me guardianship. So he goes into the hospital, turns 18, and now I'm trying to find him, and guess what? They won't tell me anything. Exactly. Now, and my ex-husband won't tell me anything because he doesn't know where he's at. So I'm making phone calls. It takes me about 7 days to find my son. So everything you have talked about today is exactly what I lived. And it was during that denial time. I mean, I was in total denial. That Monday, I actually flew to Chicago for a meeting with my company. I was sitting at the top of the very top floor of the Chicago Tribune building. And they said, well, we have an emergency phone call. I told them, if I get this phone call from the doctors, please, get me, we'll go in. So I go in, and they put me in, and I could see 360 around Chicago, sitting into this great big table. There's 40 chairs, and then me. And then they have the little speaker phones, in the middle of the table. So I'm sitting in there, and I dial in, and I'm thinking, Josh is just an unruly teenager. Denial. I told you this was going to happen if we didn't get him help. He's hanging around the wrong kids. It's my fault, divorce, stress, couldn't get custody, shame, but yet I'm in denial. It's really just drugs and alcohol. Once I get him out of that atmosphere, everything will be fine. I'm sitting there listening, and the doctor, I remember the doctor. I have a few people I want to introduce you to, and they went around the table, and there must have been an intern in that room for every part of his body, because it took 10 minutes for them all to introduce themselves. And then the doctor proceeded to ask Josh, and I'm just looking at this speaker. Josh, why don't you tell us what you're thinking? Do you know what it's like to have your mom as an alien inside your head telling you what to do every day? What just happened? He's just an irresponsible teenager. Wait. Living with an irresponsible father. Denial. That whole stage didn't last actually that long because I didn't have a choice. And that's when you go into the third stage of acceptance. And acceptance can take years, or it can take couple days. It kind of depends on where you're at. I was forced into it very quickly. Didn't have a lot of support. I was out but living in a different state, and it wasn't, I went to a NAMI. I decided to go to a NAMI group, and that's where I just remember bawling. There was doctors talking, clients talking, parents talking, bawling. And I was accepting in that moment that the Josh I knew and loved wasn't going to be the same. And I had to accept who Josh is now. And what I find, and after the last 7 years of talking to parents and mothers, I just had a lady call me about 2 weeks ago, and she was in Dallas, I think. Her son just had a psychotic episode. She was wanting some support, and I was telling her, listen, here's asking me question after question after question. She could just tell she was just very emotionally distraught. And it was interesting because that's when I realized the 7 stages. She was not ready to accept what had happened because she was like, well, all the halfway houses are in the worst part of town. Well, at least they are here in Texas. I said they are in Nebraska too. They're in Tennessee too. Like, that's where they are. Well, my son isn't going to go down there. Okay, good luck with that. But, right, we know, those of us who've been through this, you have to accept sometimes it might not be perfect, but at least you're moving forward. And that's why acceptance to me is the most dangerous of the 7 stages. Because if you don't accept where your son is at, your daughter is at, where your family is at, you will fall back and live in survival and denial. And it's very dangerous. And I see parents do it all the time, and that's when they start to enable, and then they want to bring them into their home and just take care of them. And sometimes that is needed. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I believe also in letting them grow and letting them, they have to learn to own it. And if you don't allow them to own it, they won't. Acceptance is so critical for the caregivers and parents, and it's the hardest stage. Once you accept it and move on, that's when you can go into motivations. What are your motivations for moving on? How can you help them? That's where I learned with Josh. There's got to be a reason for this to happen. So I can sit back and be mad and angry and shame. I felt a lot of shame. Or I can move on. And the motivation with Josh, we have actually do crazy conversations is what we call it. And we go on stage and we go in front of high school students and we talk. And I just ask him questions. And he has what's called thought broadcasting, and you can talk to him. He's here today. And the students will ask him, well, what happened? You know, what do you hear? And he always makes them laugh. He'll say, well, the birds kind of piss me off once in a while. But so the kids love Josh and they relate with him. But that's the point. Now we have found a motivation. His motivation is to help other young men realize that handling the problems he was having in his life the way he was handling them isn't the way to do it. Now, we realize now there was a combination of a lot of things that led to his psychotic episode. A lot of things that led to it. Not one thing, a lot of different things. Timing was everything. But once you can figure out a motivation to help move forward, Josh, since there was 3 other boys that he hung around, those 3 other friends have all committed suicide. And the last one, Jordan, was 2 years ago, Josh? 2 years ago? And he had a fiance and a baby boy. Now, what do you think I was thinking? Josh, how's he? Where's he at? What's going to happen? And I called Josh up and I said, how are you feeling about Jordan and what happened? He goes, Mom, I don't understand it. I have all the hope in the world. Hope. They got to have hope. Parents have got to have hope. And when we came to the SARDAA conference last year, Josh got to meet a few of the other clients, and one of them in particular had been to college and had done amazing things. And it was about 3 months later, he called me and said, Mom, there isn't any reason why I can't go to college. I said, absolutely not, Josh. Motivations. See, once you figure out what motivates you, we had to get through some of the old school loans from when he was trying all those things back in the day. But I'm excited to say he's starting school in March of next spring. So That was because of a conference like this. So then see, once you get motivations, that's when you can learn you'll build your confidence. We're writing his book now, and I was excited to see the lady sitting next to me, Benny, right? You and your son. I encourage you to buy that, because that's our goal, is we're going to call it Crazy Conversations, and it's going to be interview with me interviewing him, and we're just going to put it all in a book, so because people ask us these questions. So there's a motivation there, and once you do that, it builds your confidence. And Josh's confidence is getting built every single day, and that's hope. And once you do that, and as a parent, as a caregiver, that's when you learn you can connect with people again. Because when I was feeling shameful, I was that, and schizophrenia. I have 3 children. Oh yeah, what do they do? I was that. Oh, I have 2 daughters, and then I have a son. And are they in school? Oh, my 3 children are going to, I'll name off all the schools their children are going to, and not so much. And then finally one day, I'll never forget it, one day I finally just said, and my son has paranoid schizophrenia. And they went, because I said it with confidence and no shame for the first time, and their eyes were like this. Oh, really? Yeah, he's doing awesome. I'm very proud of him. Oh, well, that's good. Eventually, people start asking. And as soon as I did that, it was very empowering. But once I did that, it allowed me to start connecting with people again. It allowed me to start connecting with mothers and parents and other clients, and to be able to stand up here for the first time and talk about it in a public forum, which thank you, Linda, for allowing me to do this. And once you're able to connect with people again, that's when, I don't know if you're believers or not, or who your higher power is, but I am. That's when you're able to give a little bit of grace. And a lot of people say, Shari, why isn't grace the first stage? I wish it was that simple. Right? Grant yourself some grace and move on with life. Okay. Yeah. It isn't that simple. For parents, caregivers, the clients, people in general. And when we're going through things in life, the 7 stages, it applies to everything. But once you grant yourself a little grace, grant the people around you a little grace, grant the city's grace, right? Like, okay, the homes are in bad areas of town. Accept it, figure out something you can do with it, move forward. Josh met some interesting characters when he was in a couple of those places. But now, right, he's able to relate with those people, right? He's able to relate with other clients as well a little bit better because he understands where they come from. So there's a reason for it. And the last thing that Josh and I always talk about is, Josh, I had my story, and I made a lot of mistakes, but this is your story. This is your story. Own it. The best thing you can do is own your story. And that's my advice for mothers and anybody. It's your story. So own it. And I put a poem in the back, the last chapter of the book. It's called You. And if you'll bear with me, but this is for all the parents, the caregivers. But you are amazing. You are gentle. You are soulful. Thank you for being you. You are empathetic. You are a ray of sunshine. You are dew in the morning. Thank you for being you. You are in the moment. You were there then. You will be there tomorrow. But thank you for being you. You are a gift. You are a bow. You are so valuable. Thank you for being you. It starts with you. It will end with you because you are you. Thank you, Josh, for being you. Thank you.